G'day Facebook friends, Rod Moore here from Moore Art School. Hope you're doing well. Just want to do a little video for you talking about the importance of learning from each painting that you do. And a very good artist, world-renowned artist, once said to me that you should let each of your paintings be your real teacher. And what he meant by that was that, after you've done a painting, sit back and really analyze it and look for what you could have done better. And I was reading a book last night by Richard Schmidt called Alla Prima, and he was talking about never leave anything on a painting that you know is wrong. So never leave the scene of a painting, if you've done something wrong. So it got me thinking about the paintings that I've been doing this week, just some little sketches that I've been doing. And I've been playing around with waves and working on creating more realism in my wave paintings and so on. And it got me thinking, okay, what could I have done better? What can I learn from these paintings? Now, these paintings I did, they probably took me about an hour and a half each, I guess. They're little 8x10s. And, I'd maybe think, what can I learn from these paintings? So if you have a look at this one here, for an hour and a half sort of sketch, I guess, it's not too bad. But there's probably a lot of things that I could have done better that I should work on in the future. For instance, if you have a look here, the sky here, the distance for the sky to the back of the water, and then that distance from there to the wave is almost identical. So basically what you've got is these two horizontal bands that run through there. Probably could have done that a bit better, and I think the horizon line there is just a little bit too hard of an edge. And what I would do to improve that is to really soften that edge out. So I probably should just use a little bit more cross-hatching sort of stroke through the horizon line, and then just blurred that right back in to the horizon, so there's not such a hard line. But also losing these two bands that are almost an equal width, I think would have been a good idea as well. And if you look at the wave, like the overall shape of the wave as well, it's almost the same shape as those two. It's really interesting. I didn't notice that at all when I was doing the painting, but it's almost exactly the same shape as those two. And then through here, I've created another horizontal band almost separated by this little mini wave. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then again in the foreground, another one. So I probably should have just been a bit more mindful of that while I was doing the painting, and broken up that a bit more. So I could have softened that edge right out so that those two areas blurred in together. And I could have perhaps maybe not made this smaller wave such a straight line. Could have broken it up a little bit and lost it a bit more over here. So a bit more of a lost edge over there, just to sort of stop that happening where I've got those different horizontal bands running through the painting. But overall, it's not too bad for a 1 hour sketch. I'm not unhappy with it. But as with every painting, there are things we can do better and improve on. I think the light works well on the top of those waves, but a little bit more sort of blending into the wave area, I think probably would have helped it along a bit as well. So I'm not sure what you guys think, but that's what I think about that one. So that was the first one I did. And then I thought I'll have another go at it, and I'll break up the foreground, and I'll try and make these areas a bit more interesting. So you can see I've pushed this wave up higher, and that sort of breaks that horizontal band through there a bit more. I've changed up the tone because I thought they were a little bit too similar, the sky and the backwater. So I've made this more of a sort of a morning sort of sun just starting to rise up over the horizon with that sort of glowing red there, and broken up, push that wave up a little bit higher up there, and put a little bit more, tried to make the wave a little bit more transparent through the part where it's breaking there. So I think that probably overall that wave works a little bit better than that one. Not sure what your thoughts are. But then what I also did is try to mix up the foreground area here. So I've put in some rocks in the foreground. Now, in hindsight, I started out by saying you should let every painting be a teacher. So the thing that I would do differently with this painting is I would maybe connect up these rocks a bit more and have one big rocky area. And I would have gone for perhaps stronger darks in that corner perhaps to offset and balance against this breaking wave. So yeah, a lot more dark in there and connecting up those rocks. Having the rocks broken up a little bit over here would be okay, but just one big dark area through there I think would have worked a lot better. Thank you, Angeline. Appreciate that. So yeah, I think that's an area of improvement for this wave. The shape of this little wave in here I think could definitely be improved. It's probably not that pleasing, but it's also not distracting either, so it's probably not a major problem. And then in this wave in here, I feel like it needs a little bit more form and work in the shadow area. It's easy to sort of like, when you're painting shadows, especially in things like waves where there's a lot of movement, it's easy to think that you don't need to do much more than just block in the shadow tone. But I think if you can get some detail work into your shadows and a combination of cool and warm colors into your shadows, then your shadows are going to have more punch and impact. So if I come back to this one and have a look, you'll notice that I've got in here, there's blues and reds in the shadow area. So I've got both cool and warm colors in the shadow areas, and that really helps to create a lot more vibrancy in the shadows. You don't want your shadows just to be big dark masses. You want to have them to have life and to have form and detail as well. So yeah, so I think with this one, just perhaps a little bit more work in the form of the shadows in here would have been a good idea. I started playing around with putting some sort of that white foam into the wave there, which I think works. And yeah, as I said, maybe a little bit more darker. I feel like it needs one big dark in that corner, so I might go back and redo that. You never know. And then I also been playing around with some Australian landscaping scenes. One of the things I love to paint is cottages, and I've got a collection of photos that I've taken over the years from various places. So this is a cottage scene. Now, the photo of this, I changed the painting quite a bit from the photo. It had a lot of grasses in the foreground, had no lead in. So I changed it up a lot. And I'm thinking about doing a training on how to go from photo to painting, to a finished painting. Because a lot of people, I think, try and take the photo too literally. So I'm not sure whether that would be of interest to you, to do a training on, taking photos and then turning them into paintings. But that's something I'm considering doing. So what could I learn from this painting? What could I do a bit better with this painting? There's a few things. For one, on this shed here, I've got this, what I tried to put down as a highlight, okay? Tried to put down as a highlight there, and I don't think that line works at all. And it's running downhill a bit. It should have been a bit more horizontal. And I perhaps could have got a bit darker into the shadow side of this shed here, and maybe put in like a door. There wasn't one, like on the photo there wasn't one, but I could have perhaps put in a door or a window just to break up that area a little bit, make it a bit more interesting. But at the same time, I don't want that to be something that's got too much detail in it, because I don't want the eye going there. So I put this path in. The original photo didn't have the path. I put the path in to lead your eye up to the center of interest, which is this building here. So that's one thing I would do. A little bit of detail, but not too much, and change that highlight there. Maybe get rid of it altogether and put a bit of a dark shadowy line through there. And then up here, I think I could have strengthened the highlights on the chimney and the back here. This is actually meant to be a water tank, and I didn't really define that well, so I could probably improve on that. This little clothesline, let me see if I can just zoom in. This little clothesline here didn't exist in the photo. I put it in just to make it a little bit more interesting, and really to have what is the one sort of central thing to attract your eye, which is this area here. But it's always good to have a little touch of red in a landscape, and it draws your eye in. So your eye sort of comes in up this path, up to the house and then around, and it sort of hopefully settles in on that area there. So that's important. I probably could have done a little bit more detail work in here. And I ran this highlight to the chimney, but I didn't continue it. So that would be an area of improvement for sure. And this veranda, I put too strong of a highlight over here. And the problem with that is, the light's meant to be coming from over here. That probably wouldn't be getting the highlight there as much as what I've indicated there. So that's a little area of improvement as well. The other thing is perspective. Whenever you're doing buildings, perspective's important. So see this line that runs there, that angle needs to be repeated over there. And it almost is. I've almost got it right, but it's just not quite on the same angle. So I probably just need to adjust that out to about there, I think. Because to me, that really catches my eye, little things like that. It probably doesn't everyone's eye, but for me, that definitely catches my eye. I could have done a little bit more detail in here, but what I think would have been a good idea was to just make all this a little bit darker here, because if you have dark corners, it does push the eye into the center of the painting. Which is not a bad idea. The original photo, the tone and color of the foliage in the background here was a lot brighter. It was a sunnier day. And again, you don't want to be constrained by the photo. You want to play around with the photo and change it to the way you want it to be. So I changed this to create more of an atmospheric sort of background, a bit more hazy. So what it is, it's a lot of muted greys, grey purples, grey greens, and it's very, there's a lot of terps, because this is all done with oils. These three paintings are all oil paintings. Okay, there's a lot of terps in this background. It's really just a wash is all I've done here. Because I wanted to have this sort of muted grey foliage so that the building here pops out a bit more and is a bit stronger. Okay, so the reason why I'm showing you these, I started out by saying, those who missed the start, started out by saying that the best way to learn to paint is to be able to look at your own work and then analyse it and understand what you could have done to improve it. I learned that from a great watercolour artist who said, let your paintings be your teacher. And I think that was great advice, because it's something I've always done and probably never shared with you guys, is I've always sat down and then looked at my paintings and thought, what could I have done better? And if I can only pick out one or two things and I can take those into the next painting, then that's a big improvement. And then the other thing I mentioned at the start of this little video is Richard Schmidt's book, Alla Prima. Great book if you haven't read it, for the serious student, right? In there he talks about never leaving something knowingly on a painting that's wrong. And look, I guess it comes down to how much time you've got, doesn't it? Because I finished this painting yesterday and I knew that there was like that little highlight right there. Could have been softened back in here, needed a bit more form work. I knew that I probably could have, but how much time do you spend? That's the other thing. You've got to get as much done as you can within the amount of time you've got to paint. So I was reasonably happy with it, but definitely things to take into the next painting and improve upon. The reason why I'm doing these little studies of the waves is I'm going to do a big wave painting soon of Coolum Beach, with Coolum Beach headlands in the background and a big crashing wave in the foreground. So I'm just playing around with studies and really getting this light right, because this is, if you're going to do wave paintings, getting that light area right. And somebody asked me, how do you get your waves to have this such bright light, right? What's the secret to getting bright light in the highlights on a wave or on anything? Well, the secret is the darks. Right? You need to have strong darks, and you need to use lots of grey. If you have a look here, this is all grey muted tones in the background, right? And I see a lot of people painting, especially ocean scenes, wave scenes, they use way too much saturated colour. So if you want your highlights to really pop, you've got to use grey muted tones. Okay, it's the same on this landscape painting. This is all grey muted tones in the back. So when I put down a highlight on the main subject, it really starts to pop out. So anyway, getting a bit off track there now. Maybe I'll do another session on highlights later on. But let your paintings be your teacher. Look at every painting you do and analyse it, and ask yourself, what are 2 or 3 things I could have done better? And that's a great way to improve your painting always. So I hope this has helped. Leave a comment, let me know if this has helped or what questions you've got on analysing your own paintings, and I will